Hello, welcome to another episode of the Cultures Football Podcast with myself, Mike, and James and Fionn. And this week we're joined by a very special guest, a conniving con man in Midsummer, the thief of Mr. Bean's camera, host of They Think It's All Over, star and part creator of Radio 2 show Room 101, then, of course, for about 10 years on BBC Two. Football's go-to grumpy git Stoke fan. It's been a long intro. They think it's all over. It is now. It's Nick Hancock, ladies and gentlemen.
It's lovely to be here. I'm looking forward to it. It's nice to speak to young people.
Not been called that in a while.
I only really get out on Thursdays for whist, with my other pensioners friends.
Well, as I mentioned in the intro, when I was younger, I was a big fan of the video, the VHS, which is there thanks to my background. How did that come about? Because obviously it was a massive hit, and I know potentially you and Danny Baker's rivalry was as big as Oasis and Blur back in the day.
There's no rivalry at all, because Danny and I are old mates and get on very, very well. I think, look, it was just that time, wasn't it? Which before YouTube, before the internet, so people didn't have access to film of football. And I mean, you won't remember this. You'd sit up with your VHS player to record the 2 minutes of highlights of the 0-0 against Grimsby in the cup, and you'd have a sort of your own compilation thing. And then suddenly somebody thought, it wouldn't be a good idea. I think they'd done it on various other things. Funny things happen. If you see funny things happen at the tennis, I saw a headline only this week that said, is it Sarah Bolter, whichever, Bolter, the English women's player, and the headline was, "Bee lands on Bolter's hand," because that's how funny it is in tennis. They just piss themselves if a bird lands on the net or a bee lands or whatever. But in fact, there was tons and tons of footage knocking about, which, the people in their wisdom hadn't used because it was bad. And I think Danny before me, but, it's one of the things people love. They love to remember terrible things. It's one of the things that I like about football, that it's full of human error. And one of the things I hate about football is they're trying to get rid of human error by having, VAR and perfect pitches and no replays and all of those things. So, it was just a race to find the worst footage and then add, probably try a little bit harder than some others to write a proper, hopefully funny script rather than just go.
Something stuck out. I mean, one that sticks about it was just you join us here in the Ulster Derby, I think it was, and then he's clearly a twat.
Yeah, it doesn't really do well in the retelling, but
it's just.
Yeah. But a great thing that brought me down to earth. I got taken out by the bloke, not taken out in the footballing sense, taken out for lunch by a bloke from the video production company to celebrate. I don't know how many it was, 400,000 sales or something.
Wow.
And he said, well, of course, why videos sell so well, don't you? Why they do so well? Because there used to be big Christmas adverts would always say, the latest Danny Baker, blah 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 blah.
I remember I got the DVD at least 3 times over the course of a few years.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he said to me, well, you know why it sells so well? And I thought, well, don't embarrass me, And he said the reason DVDs sell so well is because they're easy to wrap. So that's apparently, they did some market research and they found out that women buy DVDs with footballers on for men because they know what men want, and they like them because they're easy to wrap. It's nothing to do with the hard yards you put in writing the script. But anyway, that was then, and this is now.
I think there's a great a Twitter account that doesn't really post much anymore, but it was a few years ago was exceptional. I think, and obviously when it wasn't available on the internet would have been even better. Like the Crap 90s Football Twitter account, where it's just like highlights of stuff you'd see at 2 a.m. Scarborough versus fucking Grimsby or something.
Yeah.
It's exact. I think now even even someone of mine and James's vintage of 27, 28, I think we're probably the last people who remember what it was like with no sort of round the clock. I remember having to get up at 10 a.m. on a Saturday to watch fucking Middlesbrough highlights where we got beat 1-0 by Peterborough.
Yeah. There was an article about Brian Glanville, who died recently. He was a very, very fantastic football journalist. But they were talking about how football journalism has changed, and how, well, first of all, which I find appalling, obviously, at the moment, because we're not in it, how even your big papers, they don't even touch the other divisions. It's all about the Premiership. Okay, and that's the new reality. But the other thing that they said was, because you don't have the same sort of deadlines, and because you can see the goals almost within that. They used to do a roundup, didn't they, at 8 o'clock, I think, on Sky. That was the earliest you could have match choice. But
that was only recently, though.
Yeah, they've got rid of that, I think.
Yeah.
But because they've started having live games at 8 o'clock. But the point was, there's no point in writing a report telling people who scored and what the goal was like, because you've seen them all. And so it makes it a completely different flavour of things. You used to get a thing in the olden days called the Football Special, which was a newspaper that was printed at like 5:30, say 5 o'clock, maybe even, and would be on the streets for 6 o'clock. Come out the pub and had all the results and the reports on all the games. Just saying, because that's the only way you could have got that information without having a radio stuck to your ear.
Yeah, it's a shame the kind of the idea of appointment viewing now is kind of sort of slipping further and further away. Like Sky put highlights on within maybe an hour after games are over. I mean, you can look for goals quicker on social media, but then it does. I love Match of the Day for the the patronage and the whole sort of what all that entails. Whereas like my cousin, for example, who's a lot younger than me, will just go, "Yeah, well, I've got the highlight here on like 30 seconds."
No, absolutely. And it treads a strange line, Match of the Day, now, between analysis and it's not a big reveal. The idea that you'd have to live in a different universe to be able to completely avoid knowing the scores of the games before. It's possible, but it kind of feels redundant, doesn't it? Which is a shame, I think. But there you go.
I remember my granddad was like that, where he'd always used to come around on weekends, and like he'd be when they did the thing on the BBC where they tell
look
you
away now,
just before.
He could have told me 5 minutes ago.
And then but like, I think, and there's been times, of course, like speaking to mates or something, and they've like videoed something that they're going to watch at home, and you've told them the result, and they go mad at it reasonably. It's so rare now that you'd set time aside to, if you're not going to watch it live, you just sort of
Well, it's funny. I remember when Arsenal won the league at Anfield in '89, was it? With that last-minute goal. I'm not going to say they were friends because they're Arsenal fans. I had some people I knew that were Arsenal fans who couldn't go. I don't think it was on live unless it was on Sky, conceivably, or they couldn't watch it because they were doing stand-up or whatever it was. And they all decided, or the group of them decided, well, no, we'll wait and that's it. It must have been on telly. They taped it and we could all watch it together. Of course, they lived in North London. On the moment the full-time whistle goes, all you can hear is car horns going and rockets. So it's like, that could mean anything. No, it couldn't. There's no point living in Italy and taping a game, is there?
I wonder if that Vespa blasting flower of Scotland means that Napoli have won the league. I
don't know. Before we go into your Stoke plight, will you be joining the world in watching the Club World Cup this summer?
I'll be joining the world in not watching the Club World Cup this summer. I mean, they've already got to the stage of giving tickets away, haven't they, for the first game? And therefore having to compensate people who've already bought tickets. These were tickets that I think were originally listed at something like $600, and they're now giving them away. And if you're willing to accept one, they'll give you 4 more. So I think that tells you
Where's
something.
it being held, by the way?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. No.
Well, everywhere in the US. I mean, it's US based, isn't it, James? I think it is.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it sounds like a lovely idea, maybe in principle, of like that kind of. If you're a massive football geek when you were a kid, and you would sort of fantasize about having,
Al Ain away.
Yeah, Boca Juniors playing, Arsenal maybe. But given the current climate of football and the amount of games now, it's just an absolute thorn in the side.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that would have happened to Roy of the Rovers.
Yes,
in a sort of parallel fantasy football, where they'd also be playing against Alpha Centauri and Venus. It'd be that sort of thing. But the idea of putting it together at the end of the season, the year before the World Cup, when there are, internationals on, I'll probably watch some of it because.
Just out of morbid curiosity.
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly how I'll be watching it. On
your DAZN subscription.
On my DAZN subscription, which, as I said, I only got to watch Oldham versus Southend. So there you go.
But it's not like you're saying, James. It's maybe I think only the most autistic children were growing up thinking. One day I'd like to see Suwon Sung Blue Wings play Al Ain away.
Yeah,
it has in a way for an adult, and I'm implicitly suggesting that Gianni Infantino is not an adult. It has all the attractions of the fairground, which when you're tiny and have a small brain, you are easily excited by flashing lights and noises and things that are too sweet for you to even possibly want to eat. And you'll be happily separated from all of your money, in exchange for the chance of winning, I don't know, a catapult that won't work. That's what it reminds me.
Goldfish in a bag.
Yeah, goldfish in a bag, exactly so. And yeah, absolutely so.
Yeah.
I think the main point of it though, as well, if it's in America this time, we all know where it's going to be next time. Begins with S and ends in Saudi Arabia.
Interesting. Who knows? Who knows if that isn't going to go sour? Because I think if the Saudis twist it enough, they might be able to wrestle it all away from FIFA, which is what I think FIFA should be careful about. Now, you invite people into, and I use the term advisedly, given the racial implications. If you invite people into your tent, there's a chance they'll fuck your harem. So just be a bit careful, because I don't think they'd have any compunction in the same way that they haven't with all the other sports that they brought over.
Yeah, of course.
And they're happy just to be associated with it. I mean, I've always thought the strangest thing about the Saudi, sports washing thing is that they have boxing. And they're saying, the atmosphere isn't as good. And you're going, well, no, this is a country where they have public executions. Boxing is not going to do it. Do you know what I mean? If I want to see a bit of violence, I'm not going to watch two people with gloves on. Okay, but anyway, that's all a long way away from Stoke-on-Trent.
It is.
Well, yes,
Sorry. Yeah, I think I lagged out there. Just as we're touching on that area of the world, Nick, I noticed on your Wikipedia that in 1989, yourself and Andy Smart did a comedy documentary about the Iranian national football team.
It was 1998. We went.
Was it? It says 89 on Wikipedia.
Well,
did someone dyslexic put that in?
So therefore, I'm wrong.
Oh, someone dyslexic read it.
I would actually have agreed with it if it wasn't the fact it was at the 1998 World Cup. So I'm fairly sure it was there.
Makes sense.
No, we went. My wife is Iranian, and Andy and I had wanted to go to Costa Rica, the World Cup before '94. Obviously, I think Costa Rica at that one. Maybe even the one before. Anyway, we wanted to go with a small team and just to see how different it would be. Blah blah blah. So we decided on Iran, and then of course Iran drew the United States in a group. which of course happened again this time. And my wife is Iranian. We went out to Iran and got permission from the Iranian FA to spend time, with the team and in the training camps and all that. We actually
Ali Dai as well.
Ali Dai, yeah. We actually gave a lift. We gave a lift. We got a flatbed truck driven by a bloke who'd been helping us out with the language out there, and gave a lift to one of the players to the airport. Imagine that. Imagine England at the time allowing 2 Iranian comics to take David Beckham on the back of a flatbed truck to the World Cup.
I'm in Jalili in the truck driving.
yeah. But it was great. It was really good. And the USA Iran game was just sensational because we've been with them for a long time. I knew I wanted to win anyway. It was just a brilliant game. If you get a chance to read or to watch around that game, there's tons of stuff going on there. There's tons of stuff.
Very, very funnily enough, Nick, on a politics podcast today, I was getting slagged off by an American the other day, and I decided, what should I do? I'll search up the 98 goal where Iran scored against USA and send it to that person.
It's sending the first goal or the second goal?
It's the toe poke one. It's the toe poke one.
Madavikia rather than Estili. Yeah. Yeah, no. And actually, in the same way with anything, I'm not saying we became mates with them or anything, but we spent a lot of time with them, and you get caught up in it, and it was one of the best things I've ever done. And also it was my dear friend Andy, who's no longer with us, and it was a great time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think that's got to be a name of ours. We can't go to the next one because obviously it's too expensive, and can't go to the one in 2030 because it's too expensive. Can't go because it's on 7. It's on Mars, Uranus.
Yeah.
And can't go to the one in 2034 for aforementioned beheading reasons. So in 2038, when we'll still be going, cultures will still be going in 2038. That's the promise.
Of course it will. And by 2038, the finals will actually have every country in the world.
Yeah.
The finals, and will take 7 years to complete. It'd be brilliant.
San Marino all the way out first game.
Definitely.
So the next question is: I've always wanted to ask someone this. What's it like to be a Stoke City fan?
That's a question.
That's an impossible question to answer, isn't it? That's a bit like saying, what's it like to have that face? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I've always been like this. I can't do anything about it.
We had Borough had Pulis, so I know what it's like under the Pulis regime.
I was, funny enough, I was on tour with a play in Darlington, and went to your state-of-the-art training ground at the time when Tony did say you've got some great youngsters coming through, who have many of them come through since then. But yeah, I think he was. I think Tony was living on a borrowed expectation by then. He'd had his days in the sun, which were long and glorious. And
as we well know, yeah.
But I also ran into very weirdly Jonathan Pearce of commentary fame at Piccadilly Station once after he was at Saga. He was doing a City game or something, and but I bumped into him and I got chat. I went, "Oh, Jonathan, can I have a picture, please?" And he was really nice to me, and he's like wanted to chat with me afterwards. I was like, "Oh, I'm not expecting I wasn't there." I thought, I'll do the non-lunatic thing of go away. But he did. He had a chat with me, and then very wisely, because this was this was right near the end of Pulis's reign, where I was. If he'd have looked at my internet output, would have realised I was lying when I said. When he said, what do you think about Tony Pulis?" I really like. I think he's all right. And then he went on this thing of, they're close friends. Oh, I'm glad I said that.
I think Jonathan was a young player at Bristol City when Tony was a relatively old player there. I think him and Ian Holloway are great great fans of Tony. Tony is one of those managers, and all managers used to be like this. I remember speaking to Lou Macari, for instance, who said, "I don't understand managers who want the players to like them. I don't want the players to like me. I want them to do what I tell them to do. They're just out of bloody school, most of them. They know fuck all. They should listen to me." And some people, some players, because if you say to them, "If you do what I tell you, you'll get success," and that's what happened at Stoke. And some players love that, and some players absolutely hate it. And of course, more and more in this day and age, it becomes impossible to be that sort of autocratic manager because players' agents and people like that, they're just not used to. They're not used to it because they don't see it all. Of course, there are times when it is out of order, and it is bullying, and it can be unpleasant. But I think Tony would say, you've got a choice. You can do it my way, or you can fuck off. And he would stick by that. I know plenty of players that Tony would have had a falling out with them. That was it.
Quite famously, James Beattie with a towel.
Yeah. But Ferguson was much the same, with Just Stam and people. Beckham, Keane, yeah. Nobody's bigger than the club. What they really mean is nobody's bigger than me. That's what they mean when they say.
Well, I read something about Alex Ferguson where he'd gleefully accept when players wanted a massive paying for Wayne Rooney Wayne Rooney, because he had something in his contract that was I have to be paid more than the highest paid player. Wayne Rooney wants 250 grand a week, does he? No problem.
Yeah. No, yes, I'd heard similar, and it's one of those things that even if it isn't true, let's say it's true because it sounds good and it's pleasing and adds to the legend.
Yeah, exactly. It's the story's more important.
Regards to the era that we cover, which is sort of mid-noughties to sort of early teens, Stoke at that time, obviously going to the Premier League was massive, and for us, they are the sort of quintessential Barclays team, and obviously
Stoke, Wigan, Portsmouth, they're the OG,
the Holy Trinity.
Bolton,
Blackburn.
Blackburn
Blackburn
have the stink of they had a bit of they won it once. You know what I mean? They're not proper suffered. They're not suffered enough.
Pre-Portuguese Wolves, potentially.
Obviously.
Go on.
But no, sorry, Nick, you go.
No, I was going to say, it's funny you should mention all of those teams because, in a way, in trying to try and work out what happens what happened to us is a strange parabola where somehow, at the moment, we're about to grasp, a strong status in the Premier League, it drifts away. And actually, I think if you look at all of those teams, and a lot of teams, even before that, the teams that come up and are there for a bit, 10 years is about it. 10 years is sort of the shape. Now, that's, I think, going to change now. I think that's changing. I don't think
we'll ever get rid of Bournemouth.
Well, that's what I mean. Bournemouth, Brighton. Brentford, they would now. Bournemouth have been got rid of twice, to be fair, but they've come back again. I mean,
herpes of a team.
Well, well, it always comes back. Yeah, absolutely. But that seems to be a different shape. 10 years used to be, and the problem was always, it's great we're here. Bloody hell, we're doing so well to stay up. We're doing better. Why don't we do better than this? We should be buying more. We should be challenging for honours. Relegation. That's
West Brom did it with Pulis, where they were saying he finished eighth and then demanding they finish higher, and then they went fucking down the next day.
Charlton with Kirbyshire, I always think with that.
Yeah,
but it's true of a lot of clubs. It absolutely is, and it's about reach, isn't it? It's about outreaching, and I don't know. There are sometimes I think that some clubs, whatever you want to do, and you might know this as a Middlesbrough fan, You know, sometimes you attract incredible players like Janino and Ravanelli and people like that. But the truth of the matter is, 9 times out of 10, especially when you're actually not even especially when you're recruiting from abroad, but sometimes when you're recruiting from abroad, the first question of the agent or the family is, how near to London is that?
Yes.
And you can't do anything about that. You know?
A perfect example, Nick, is we had before, when we came up this season with
Anchor.
when we came up that season, we had a deal with Mitrovic,
Right.
2016-17. So we had a deal with Mitrovic agreed, signed, about to fucking dotted line. And then Fulham, who were in the Championship at that time, whose manager was Serbian, Fulham came in for him, bid the same, and he went to Fulham instead. So because it's like,
well, it's you know, and you can kind of. There are other deals done, aren't there? And I don't think this happens quite so much now. I think when there was a lot of excitement about foreign talent, but difficulties with them. I mean, there was sometimes players were training with other teams, nearer to London and coming up. You know what I mean? Had deals done. I mean, not solidly, but we're allowed to do that. We're allowed to maybe train 2 days with, I don't know, whoever was an accommodating club, Palace, or you know, maybe they've done it as part of a transfer deal. Who knows? But unfortunately, that's it more and more. And I always say, for God's sake, to the very few people I know that are involved in Stoke, I always go, if people ask how far Stoke is from London, say it's 1 hour and 20. All right? Because that's what it is on the train. You don't need to tell them anything else. You don't need to tell them it's a shithole. You don't need to tell them that. You don't need to tell them, because they won't be impressed. If you tell them, and it's the same in Middlesbrough, you can rent a house for 80 quid a week. They're not interested in that. No, that's not.
So were you in the boardroom when Xherdan Shaqiri signed then?
No, I wasn't. I've been involved in a transfer once.
Oh, really?
I'll tell you. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
So this was, in fact, the year we came up, and I was on a train going up to Stoke. It was the Manchester train, and I'm just sat there, and I could hear this bloke chatting away, and he goes, "Yeah, well, I've spoken to Stoke, but you're," and I'm thinking, "Hello." So I thought, I'm listening in here, and he's going, "Well, Stoke have offered this, that, and the other, but Leeds have offered such and such and such and such and such and such, and I think Leeds would be the better move for you." So I go out into the vestibule, phoned up the chief executive of the club, Tony Scholes, and said, "Are we looking at a player that we've offered this to? and they might be going to Leeds?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Well, look, this is what Leeds are offering them." And I told him. and 2 days later, we bought him. Now, I'm not saying that I made that happen, but in many ways, I feel I did. It was Richard Cresswell, and we went up that year.
Cresswell. Wow. York City player.
My one,
Chef Wednesday.
My one almost involvement in a transfer also revolves around Stoke, weirdly. Friend of the show, Georgian footy, Luca Lagvalava in Tbilisi, gave me a text me saying, "Oh, by the way, we're signing this Dinamo Tbilisi after this lad from who's Ugandan but is at some youth academy or something, and he's in Stoke, and we need to get him to Manchester so we can fly him to Paris so we can fly him to Tbilisi." Right, okay. He went, what do you want me to do about that? He went, can you book the train or can you book him an Uber and I'll pay you? No problem. I'll be involved in this. And that's what I said. He went, when do you need it? Oh, he went, maybe in a couple of hours. I'll ring you. No worries. Couple of hours, goodbye. Couple more hours, goodbye. Rang him. Oh, no, it's nearly done. We're just ringing the... And then anyway, about 5 or 6 hours go by. He rings me up, goes, "Don't worry, deal's cancelled. Too much money." Oh, no worries. There we go.
Shame I don't know who that is. I can't think who was Ugandan. We've had, like all clubs have had, many fantastic players who are going to be the next big thing. Who've just done it. Scored scores of goals. Brett Shea, in a way. We've got a couple at the moment with Sidibe, and we had talking very recently Sidibe and Suter and Bae Jun-ho and people like that. A bit like Middlesbrough, actually. You've bought some very good players at the right time, Hayden Hackney and people like that.
I was really disappointed last time I went to Stoke, and it was sort of maybe a bit of getting old setting in. It's like I don't know who any of Stoke's players are anymore. Like, who are these lads?
Last season, didn't it?
Yeah, well, nor do I. I mean, I do. I know their names, but I don't really know how they play because we seem to play such a strange system. And that's okay. If we're going to be old man talking about football, people around me often say, "Well, why has he done that? Why has he done that?" And I just keep saying he's done it because he's told to do it. Footballers don't do what they're not told to do. Trust me. Trust me.
Yeah.
If we're playing the ball really, really early to try and beat the press, and we get dispossessed up front 5 times, the manager doesn't mind because the 6th time we might get away from them. So they're not doing it because they're stupid. They're doing it because they're they're coached within an inch of their lives. You know, when they've got to throw in, they've got a fairly good idea where it's got to go and in which direction. You know, it's not. There used to be a phrase years ago about players like Brian Robson or Peter Reid or, you know, some of these sort of totemic midfield players, and they'd say, and suddenly they took the game by the scruff of the neck and changed the way it was. No, they take the game by the scruff of the neck. You're in big trouble. Now, Ericsson was one of the first ones. He got rid of all the senior players for England and brought in a lot of young players who were good players, but who would do what he said, basically.
I was going to say that about Stoke. I think that time they were in the Premier League, I think once the lapse throw had been sort of figured out, and also, you know, at the time, I mean, we relish it now, we love it. The sort of like that sort of style, but like at the time, it was quite sort of criticised. But as a fan in the stands, how did you react to that sort of like brush you were being tarred with, of like, oh, this is boring Route 1 football?
Well, it was the same as any team that comes up.
Yeah.
The first 3 years, everybody's really chuffed with you because you've gone against all the expectations. I mean, I remember Paddy Power, one of their great tricks that they love to do, paid out on Stoke being relegated after the first game of the season when we lost 3-1 at Bolton. And of course, we stayed up. And
that's probably Bet365 rivalry coming into play.
Well, it may well have been. It may well have been. So you're the charming underdogs for a certain amount of time, and then teams get bored of losing to you. Yeah. They get bored of coming to Stoke and having a really tough game, and it being quite physical, and them losing, and them not enjoying it, which was, you know, one of the things I would have said. Tony definitely would have said, if the other team are enjoying it, you're not doing your jobs.
I think it's like Big Sam's Bolton, Nick, because they always used to. That's exactly the point you're making with, like, because they always used to beat United. I don't care about statistics. You can show me whatever you want. I don't believe that every year Big Sam beat United at least once.
We used to beat Arsenal all the time at home. But the thing, I mean, look at Kevin Davies at Bolton. You know, I think very much admired and a very interesting player, but just a pain in the arse to play against. I mean, difficult and elbows and bloody, you know, and just ran his arse. So I think you have a honeymoon period where people go, oh, little old Stoke. And then they go, well, this is getting a bit boring now because they keep winning. And of course, it's a terrible game if you lose. So therefore, we're terrible. And admittedly, we did play in a certain manner. It was a manner we had to play in. We couldn't attract players. It was very difficult for us. And then, to be fair, actually, we're talking about overreaching. Then we suddenly had a team that actually were a really, really good team with Bojan and Shaqiri and Arnautovic and Nzonzi, another wonderful player. And
World Cup winner, Steven Nzonzi, by the way.
Steven Nzonzi, that's right. Yeah. After it left, and you know, and I think famously we had something like 7 the Champions League winners in our squad. Most of them.
Afellay as well, yeah.
Afellay, load of them. But so we did change. But you know, the media takes a long time to. I mean, even now, honestly, I listen to commentary about Stoke and they go, they're very strong at set piece. I'm thinking, we haven't scored a set piece goal for like 5 years.
Yeah.
But it's such a lazy stereotype. But, no, that's all right. That's just the way that coverage works, isn't it?
it did spawn that sort of, it's a tough place to go, can we do it on a cold Tuesday night?
Yeah.
Which in many ways is a compliment, really, to have,
Well, yeah.
Have you ever had to walk back from the Bet365 to Stoke Station on a cold Tuesday night? I have. It's not fucking pleasant.
Well, no, walking back to Stoke Station in the very old days was not a walk you'd want to take anyway. You used to have to walk through the burial ground, which in many ways lived up to its reputation in that it offered many people up to the gods. But yeah. I mean,
what was the question you got? Oh, sorry, mate. Go
on.
No. I was going to James, because we cut you off mid-question before. No,
that was the question.
That was okay. No worries. There we go.
Well, we'll get more on Stoke, but I have to ask you while you're in and talk about the best TV show of the 90s. They think it's all over.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was very good to me, and I loved it, and my accountant would agree. It was great fun. It gave me the chance to meet, because basically I'm a fan. I'm a fan of lots of sports, not just football. Football, obviously, is probably.
But for anyone who doesn't know, for any of our younger listeners,
yes.
Imagine League of Their Own, but good.
And fun, yeah.
And in fact, A League of Their Own is written by all the same people and produced by the same people.
It's not got Nick Hancock though, has it? Do you know what
I mean? No, it was great. So I got to meet lots of really high-profile sports people, men and women that I admired, and take the piss out of them. So it was lovely, and I got to work with, and we had permission basically. BBC Sport hated the programme because we took the piss out of sport. And BBC Sport are very, very, very down the line about, you'll be destroying our relationship with players, you'll be destroying our relationship with clubs, you'll be doing this, that, and the other. We had two trump cards, because we had Gower and Lineker. And the point was, if they were willing to have the piss taken out of them, then at the time, they were probably the two preeminent sports people in Britain. So it gave permission. And also that meant we got great guests, because they thought, well, because the favourite word of any professional footballer has to do anything other than to play football is no, or yes, and then they don't turn up. These are the two options. But having Lineker and Gower there meant that people said yes. And so, we had great guests, and it was great fun to do, and it was of its time. There were some things about it I think were probably a little bit too harsh, and of its time. But it was great fun to do, and it was fortunately incredibly successful. I mean, many millions of people watched it, so it was great fun.
To change the shape of the ball very, very briefly to an egg shape, I couldn't pass up. What was Jonah Lomu like?
Well,
James has not explained that well enough, Nick. James was born in New Zealand, so that's why. That's the correct.
Can I also ask if you describe this to James as well, including the part about Chris Eubank?
Well, okay. So Chris Eubank, the famously self-effacing and calm boxer who wore a monocle and drove a large American truck around Brighton, and he had one of those enormous things that you only really see in films about the Deep South or the Midwest. Anyway, he was on, and for younger people, they probably have heard of his son, who's been fighting recently. He had a lisp, but he loved to talk, but he was a perfect guest because he had no sense that he was in any way ridiculous. So he would do anything because he thought he'd be fine. If you asked him if he should be the next James Bond, he would say it. And if you'd say to him, "Oh, could you just read this out, please, Chris?" He'd go, "Yes. Jesus Christ, Savior of all our souls," and he wouldn't know that you were taking the piss out of him. Anyway, we showed him a picture of Jonah Lomu, and we said, "Oh, what do you think? Do you think he looks an impressive specimen?" He goes, "No, I cannot believe that he is. He is not. Even if he may be a fighter, he would certainly not be a pugilist. I'm a pugilist, I know how to fight correctly by the Queen of Marcus's Queen of Three Rules. Blah 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 blah. And then we had a segment on the show whereby you were blindfolded and you had to guess who the mystery guest was by touch alone. And he had slagged off Jonah Lomu so much, and Jonah Lomu came on, and Chris Eubank had a blindfold on and had to find out who it was. And Jonah Lomu just gave him such a stare, and Chris Eubank actually looked quite shit scared. But it was all good fun,
Yeah.
You know, maybe a couple of lads got a slap. It was all good fun. Yeah.
Just how it was back then. Just how it was.
Did you get a cup of tea with Jonah?
Hey, a broken leg, that'll mend.
Yeah.
Come on.
The Dave Whelan school of...
Yes. There's a story.
Did you get a cup of tea with Jonah then?
No, I think Jonah left at times. I think Jonah is one of those sort of people, isn't he? He's quite self-effacing and not a party kind of a person.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Maybe James would know better than me, but
No, you're right. Yeah, no, you are right. Yeah. I'm just thinking about the time Steve Coogan bumped into Chris Eubank, and Chris Eubank said, "You're a very funny man. I want to act. Do you have any roles for me?" And Steve Coogan went, "Well, you've got very limited range." that was the end.
Yeah. Well, and of course he ended up in one of the great Partridge lines when Partridge is trying to bid for a new show and suggests youth hosteling with Chris Eubank, which is one of the great ideas for a television show. Well, there you go.
There's a lot of BBC shows that aren't far off that now. Like, that of course is, you know, in Homer's words, it's funny because it's true. Yeah.
It's only just outside of reality.
Ramesh Ranganathan goes on holiday with his mum again for some reason.
Yeah.
I think that that's what you kind of want, especially at that time as well, like sort of like late in the 90s going into the noughties, that idea of like celebrities, sports people being under the microscope even more so. Like you kind of want to see a side of them that isn't on the pitch, do you? It's
like the first show of its kind, really.
Yeah.
Greasy did it a little bit, but
all you'd see of footballers outside of Match of the Day would be with Abby Titmus falling out of an nightclub on the Star.
Like Nick maybe before, but Gary Lineker before that show, he was like the holier than now England's. And then it was the first time he was taking the mick out of on telly, and it was like, oh,
he was still quite careful in what he said, but you know, he's I sound such a patronising. He's good as gold, is Gary. There you go. That's patronising, isn't it? Fuck him.
Next week's guest, Gary Lineker.
I've said words about him. You wouldn't mind that.
He's not busy anyway. Anytime soon.
No, do you think he'll be missed?
We should be.
Well, I think he will be. I mean, I think, funny enough, we spoke earlier about how football reportage, for want of a better word, is done. I think Match of the Day is going to become more analytical and less highlighty.
Which is exactly the opposite of what people want.
Well, it kind of is. It kind of is, because it falls between two stools at the moment. The two stools being Micah Richards, and never mind, and Danny Murphy was the other one.
At least Genus was going to be a problem, but luckily allegations. So thanks for that.
Yeah. No, I think it'll end up being. I don't know. I think he will. I think he's become so representative of the BBC that he gets stick because a lot of people want to hammer the BBC, and so he's a great stick to beat them with. Who knows? I don't think he'd be short of offers. Put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, definitely. So James, go.
I was going to say, might you get to the teams?
Yeah. So we asked you to prepare a couple of 11s, maybe your favourite Stoke 11 from the Premier League era, or any you want, and the worst
Okay.
Which I'm sure Stoke will have a great one. And potentially the worst one, in our eyes, could be the best one. So
yeah, the worst one will probably be the best one.
Yeah.
I would say.
I have to. This is. I don't like doing worst 11s because you don't know.
Not
the full
worst.
story.
Yeah.
Okay. Comedy 11s.
Comedy 11. There you go.
And do they have to be from the Premier League era?
No,
you can add an anecdote. Yeah.
Okay. Well. Okay. Well, my number one, if I was going to have players that I love because they're quite unlovable, would possibly be a player called Des Bakos, who we bought from Hellenic in South Africa in 1978, along with Jeff Cook, who later played for Halifax. And Des Bakos played in 2 games for Stoke. He flew over from South Africa straight to Cardiff and made his debut at Cardiff. And then our next game was away at Southampton, and he played at Southampton. I'm fairly sure he never set foot in Stoke-on-Trent at all. In both games, the only pictures you can see of him are him looking at the ball going over his head. He was just absolutely, just made no impact whatsoever. And of course, at the time, anybody from abroad was potentially the thing, Yeah. We're talking about, well, just before RDS and Villa, but remember, for every RDS and Villa, there was a Tarantino or a Sabella, who was actually a very good player, but or a Mirandinha, for instance, at Newcastle. And so Des Bakos is my favourite, mainly because all of us anoraks who love football like to be able to mention a player to other people who support the same club as ours, and then go, I don't know who that is. That which always makes you feel good about yourself, doesn't it? In a terrible, awful way, but understandable. Talking of anoraks, when in the things all over studio, in the office, where they had to do all the research and find all the clips and do all of the the biogs for all of the players. All of the lads and lasses that worked there had absolute encyclopedic knowledge of sport, and it was quite a zoo atmosphere, to use the awful TV term, where people were just shouting out ideas all the time. But they had an office anorak that would be awarded by the hour to the person who'd said the dullest and most esoteric thing. And it was a literal anorak, and you had to wear it until somebody said something duller and more esoteric.
I think this is the place. This is a place all 3 of us were born to work in.
Yeah.
This is. And like there was the that video of the old fella in the pub going through literally every team in England and Scotland.
Yes.
Where he does that, and it's like the thing of like you just said, like obviously in the 90s would have qualified for then as well. Like my dad does it. My dad will go through encyclopedic like things of players from either Ireland or United or whatever, and like and then he'll say 5 minutes later, we never had autism in my day. Yes, you did. Because you are.
Well, for instance, so in the first couple of years of supporting Stoke, we lost in 2 FA Cup semi-finals. Okay, both in replays, both to Arsenal, which explains an awful lot about my psyche. Right. But I just remember, and would have been like 8, 9. I just remember them always saying, nobody remembers the losing semi-finalists. And from that point on, I made it a point to remember all the losing semi-finals. It used to be my party trick that nobody wanted to see, clearly, where I go, go on, give me a year. They've all gone now, because after about 1984, I think I'd be struggling. But I did learn them for ages. And those sort of esoteric things, they're brilliant if you're... They're like a massive in-joke, and if you're in on it, they're great. But for everybody else, they're so dull.
I think that's everything we've ever. I think that's everything we've ever done on culturism. It's like people who get it really get it. People who don't get it don't get it at all.
Well, that's interesting, because I've always said, look, the best jokes are in-jokes, right? And if you're going to be a decent stand-up, you need to make the audience think that what you're telling them is an in-joke between you and them. That's when it works best. But sometimes, and I've done it myself, sometimes you know that you're going to say something, and you know it's for people that aren't even in the room. but you should do it because that's the whole point of the thing. I remember we used to always have this thing. This is when we were teenagers, about the phrase, because we just loved it because it was so, one, unfair, and two, unfathomable, which was, Taffy was a Welshman, Taffy was a thief. Taffy came to my house and stole a side of beef. Right, this used to be a phrase that was used. I don't know what it meant or anything. And I remember being on a flight on my own and sitting next to this Welsh couple. And these were the days when you got in-flight meals, and it was beef. And I spent the whole flight hiding my meal from these two Welsh people so I could go home and say to my friends, hey, Taffy had no chance stealing my side of beef on that flight. But you couldn't say it and not do it. You have to do it.
Yeah,
if you know what I mean. No, those are the most esoteric things.
Nowadays, that would have been just a picture, and then you'd wait till you get off the flight.
Well, exactly. Well, I think back now, I think that would have been so much easier. So much.
Add it on.
I had a bit where I used to say, like, I've got loads of cool party, and I used to name all the teams in the 2010 World Cup. And you'd always get a bit of a cheer from the men. And then one man stood up and went, well done, you remembered something. Yeah, that's it now. That I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, that's it. I'll tell you something about the 2010 World Cup. When Stoke got to the FA Cup final in 2011, we just signed Jermaine Pennant that season. We signed Jonathan Walters. He's a classic.
Oh,
if you want one
let
of your
me tell you
boys.
my John Walters story very quickly.
Go for it.
I was working for Amnesty International, not like high up, not like fucking Julian Assange as well, or something. I was on the street doing the fucking
Is
when
it
I was 18.
chugging or something?
Chugging,
yeah.
I didn't do it very long. We got sent to Stoke as well. It's like probably not. Yeah, Stoke, Crewe, Wakefield. Why are we asking these people for money? They clearly don't have it. But anyway, I was on the street in Liverpool in the middle of summer, boiling, having to wear some fucking big yellow jacket, asking people for money. And then I went, excuse me, to do the standard spiel. Excuse me, sir. And I went, that's fucking Jonathan Walters, that. Sunglasses. And he went, oh, Jonathan Walters. He went, fuck off. And that's what Jonathan Walters.
I think being told to fuck off by anybody famous is always pleasing. I've been told to fuck off by Alexis Sale, and I'm very proud of that. Quite right. But anyway, so very quickly on the 2010 World Cup, and here's it's strangely bizarre and tangential story. And before that, I'll give you Jonathan Walters one. Jonathan Walters would never have played in the 2011 Cup final if it wasn't for the fact that Rochdale played an ineligible player against Chester in the second qualifying round, because Rochdale beat Chester. Jonathan Walters was playing for Chester. Rochdale got chucked out. Jonathan Walters then played in the first round of the second round with Chester, and then played Ipswich, who bought him, and he ended up playing the cup final in 2011. So there you go.
Wow.
So, all right. So here's the thing. So just as we, in the run up to that cup final, when we had Pennant, we had Etherington, we had Begovic, but he didn't play. Sorensen played. Wilson had loads of injuries as well. Huth was injured and Etherington was injured, although they played them. Anyway, blah. I had to do some filming before the semi-final in the straight dressing room. And in there, Tony, in one of those fantastic managerial, motivational, inspirational things, had a massive picture up on the wall of the England squad coming off the plane at Johannesburg, I presume it would be, or maybe Cape Town, walking down it all in their World Cup suits, which I think were kind of a beige. But anyway, they're all coming down. And underneath it, it said, last year, England sent... Is there a child?
No.
It's fine. So Tony said, so it says underneath it, last year, Britain sent 2 bunches of young lads to represent their country abroad. The ones who went to Iraq came back in body bags, but they should be proud. Are you proud of this lot? And it was the England side on the thing. Right, okay. So that summer, he bought Woodgate, Upton, and Crouch. Okay, and I'd done some charity thing with him just before the season started. He bought these all in like end of August, beginning of September, and I said to him, "Tony, have you taken that picture down yet?" And he went, "What picture?" I said, "That picture you've got has got bloody Crouch and Upton." Woodgate on it, and you put their disgrace to the nation. And he went, "Oh God, I better do that." It's so pleasing. Works for one group of players, maybe not for the other.
It reminds me of Ian Wright saying, when Ian Wright said, what was it? I can't remember the context, but he said that I think it was after a particularly bad performance. Was it?
If anyone refuses to play for England, they should go and knock on the door.
You should be forced to ring up the families of dead soldiers in Afghanistan and apologize.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hello. Yes, my name's White. I play for Arsenal. Yeah, I'm really sorry about what happened to your son.
But I just didn't fancy a trip to Kazakhstan.
I just didn't want to go to Qatar, you know. Who wants to go there? You know? Anyway, but there you go.
So that's the goalkeeper.
Yes, yeah.
The goalkeeper. Anyway.
He wasn't a goalkeeper, but there you go.
Oh, well,
was that?
Look, I'm not going to do your full 11 because we haven't got the time to do
That's
the full 11. I'll tell you the ones.
Do it just five each. I'll do five.
I'll do the ones that crucified us when we got relegated because we suddenly decided we could buy our way out of trouble. We bought Kevin Wimmer.
Oh.
From Tottenham for a lot of money. As immobile a man, both facially, emotionally, and physically as you could imagine. Not only could he not move, he was unmoved. He didn't seem to care. He was just a complete pain in the arse. Wilson Palacios, a lot of money.
Wilson
Palacios. Now, I've some sympathy for Wilson. You know, his brother and his father had been kidnapped by FARC guerrillas. So he got other things on his mind, unlike Kevin fucking Wimmer, who, unless he was one of Joseph Fritzl's bloody kids, had no real reason to be upset, Austrian as he was. All right. Then I'm going to go for Gianni Imbula.
He was terrible. He was like 25 million quid as well.
Yeah, he was a lot of money.
I remember listening to TalkSport about 6 months before he signed, and the guy who did the French football said he's... I think he was at Porto, actually, maybe. The next big thing, he said. He's brilliant.
And my son, and here's the thing about statistics, looked him up on FIFA and went, this is going to be a great signing. Yeah. Because he just got all the stats. No, he was awful. I'm not sure if he's the worst of the lot, but he may well. Well, there was Hesse, who we had on loan from Real Madrid. There's another Champions League winner who played for Stoke. Yeah. And indeed, Hosselu, who's another Champions League winner.
Wow, yeah.
Although Hosselu didn't get as many chances. But I think top of the fucking wanky cunty tree, if there be such a thing, and in my house there is one. We have a Christmas tree during the Christmas period, but the rest of the year there's a counting fucking wanky tree. And there, right at the top, as the angel, is Sado Berahino.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, a lot of money. A lot of money. The also Ilian, not Ilian Ndiaye, the Ndiaye we bought at the end of that season again for 14 million. The reason that they bother me is the lack of effort they got there. We weren't doing quite as well as they thought we would do, as we've been doing the last 2 or 3 years, mostly before Nzonzi left, because he was a wonderful, wonderful player. And they just didn't bother. They really couldn't be bothered. And that's the real heartbreak. When you know that they've got, well, I don't necessarily think Wimmer had an awful lot of talent, but the others, they probably did have an awful lot. And actually, all of their careers, apart from Hosselu, disappeared into the dim and distant future.
How much did you pay for Berahino?
16 million, I think it was.
I saw a stat about him that it was. I assume he's broken it now, but it was something like, since the death of Ronnie Corbett, he hadn't scored a penalty. Which made me think that Berahino was
now
watching Four Candles.
Okay, well now we've got now we've got the whole Palacios thing, perfectly. If a tragedy like that comes into your life, like your father and your brother being kidnapped by FARC, or Ronnie Corbett dying, then it's going to affect your game, isn't it? You're suddenly going to think, this is stupid. This is just 11 against 11 kicking a ball. Ronnie fucking Corbett's dead, for God's sake. Incidentally, a schoolboy player for Heart of Midlothian.
Yeah,
Ronnie
was
Corbett. Yes. These are the things you have to do. These are things James he'd be able to throw off the top of his head all the time. And then there were our brief attempt to buy big names early on. Ida Gudjonsson.
Oh yes,
he played for Stoke and Bolton. Played for all the good.
Well, he played well for Bolton and went to Chelsea and played well for Chelsea.
Yeah,
then he went to Barcelona.
He went to Bolton again though at the end of his career.
Did he? Yeah. Well, he was absolutely awful for us, and got in a fight with Ricardo Fuller for saying
you don't do that.
I think he found that out. I think for saying
Mr. Stoke.
We don't do training like this. We didn't do training like this at Barcelona. And I think, as he picked himself up off the ground, Rick may have said something along the lines of, maybe you'd like to choose to return to Barcelona, but not those exact words. Michael Owen, of course, who came to us briefly. He was another one, and here's a name for you. I feel James will know this immediately. There's been a lot of talk about Gyökeres at Sporting Lisbon, hasn't there? The Swedish striker. He's Swedish, isn't he, Gyökeres?
Yeah. He's got a Hungarian name, but he's Swedish.
Well, these days, with your Shakiris and your Bojans, it happens all the time. Can I throw into the ring the great Swedish hope of football in the the early 11s, teens, let's call it, John Guidetti.
John Guidetti, Celtic legend,
John Guidetti, who I think we had on loan from Manchester City, who in their normal way had spent a great deal of money on this.
I think John Guidetti was in like very similar physical shape to me. As in quite overweight.
Yeah, missed the sitter for Celta Vigo that would have got them into the Europa League final against the.
He was basically a very tall Thomas Brolin. So I think those ones bother you. There are others a bit like Des Backers I could mention, but they just didn't make it. And I had a little look through, and we bought a lot of players over the years. One more that actually I would blame for himself, Dave Kitson.
I hate Dave Kitson.
I hate Dave Kitson.
I hate Dave Kitson.
Wasn't Dave Kitson was famously rumoured to be the secret footballer? Yeah. I can't imagine Dave Kitson and Tony Pulis being a meeting of minds somehow.
No. I think Dave Kitson is now managing Nauru in the Pacific. They've never played a game.
Wasn't she in Star Trek? No. Kitson was, I don't know. He was one of those players that wandered around the pitch as if he was a UEFA observer. He felt he couldn't get involved for fear of being sacked, so he'd just observe. And also he didn't want to get sweaty because he had to go home in these clothes. So he bothered me. There are other players who are.
He's probably the worst Middlesbrough. I'm thinking of players that with the same season we signed Dave Kitson, right? We had Olivier Giroud when Gordon Strachan came in. We had Olivier Giroud signed on the line, ready to go. All it needed was the new manager that we just brought into approval, which was Gordon Strachan. And he said, Gordon Strachan said he hasn't got what it takes to make it in the Championship, and signed Chris Killen, Chris Boyd, and fucking Dave Kitson.
Well, there isn't a club in the world that doesn't have a story like that, is it? You know, we all have. And I mean, from my very early days, you know, I remember being told that we were about to sign Pele. You know, or that Sheffield United bought Alex Sabella but had been offered Diego Maradona. You get these all the time, and I'm sure. Well, if you look now, if people ever look back at the way that transfer rumours exist now, everybody would have signed everybody.
Yeah, of course.
Every season, because it's just absolutely ridiculous. There are players. I mean, I love the fact that we had a player apparently called Cameron McJanet, who I would love to have played for, just because I like his name, and we had Osimendi, Diego Osimendi from Uruguay.
Oh yeah.
Who immediately you think he's going to, he's got the
sounds good
player, doesn't he? Diego.
Yeah, I remember him in the reserves on Football Manager.
Come on, he's a player, isn't he? You don't even need to see him play. The name does it.
Yeah, we got that one year at York City in about 2002. We signed a Brazilian called Rogério Carvalho, and he came on.
Rogério Carvalho.
Rogério Carvalho. They started selling Brazil shirts in Club Shop when number 9 up back and everything, and he come on for his debut away at Scunthorpe, and
what a fucking debut that is.
Debut in Helmand Province. We were 1-0 down, and corner come in, and you just seen this. He's got 6'5" Brazilian. He's just about to land on his head, bang in the goal, and he decided to try an overhead kick and missed it, and we never saw him again. And it turned out he'd never played on grass, so he's a big soccer player. I love the idea
of them taking him aside, going, "Now, Diego, this is your footing in English football. I want you to understand this. York Scunny, it's a fucking big one, man. Hey, get yourself up for it.
Un grande, Diego."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Super.
You know, on the other side, there are many Stoke players I love. Some for reasons of efficacy, of just being there. Jerry Taggart was a great signing. He was there for like half a season, but turned it all around just by being a brick shithouse.
Yeah, well.
and also
the same reasons you hate Kevin Vimmer for, but he was good at it.
Yeah, well, but also terrifying the players around him. You know, you don't want to let Jerry. You don't want to let Jerry down. Trust me, you don't let Jerry.
You don't want to let Jerry down.
No.
I believe that's what the IRA used to say.
Well, I was, yeah. No, I have a feeling that Jerry may have been a bit frightened of our Jerry, or indeed Leicester City's Jerry. You know, I always like the defenders that put themselves about. I always like your Shawcrosses and your Hoos and your Dennis Smiths to go back a long, long way, and Alan Bloors and all of those players. I always love them. My favourite sort of player of all, and I think this is me being snobby because I want to say to people, I think I know more about the game than you, is defensive midfield players, or the bits and pieces players, or the water carriers, or whatever you want to call them. So
the scruff of the net grabbers.
Yeah. So you know, and Zonzi and Whelan in the Premier League, Paul Bracewell, who played for us, was a wonderful footballer. You know, John Mahoney. These are the players that drive the team and keep it all together, and also allow you to have, you know, a couple of fair players, because you know they'll be covering for them. So I always like them. And then of course, player wise, Alan Hudson's my very, very favourite player of all time, ever bar none, which shows you how old I was when I first fell in love with him, because I used to use the phrase ever bar none. And then, you know, Jimmy Greenoff. Tunshire was great fun for a bit.
Oh,
yeah. Well, you'd love Tunshire, of course. Yeah.
Talk dirty to me.
Well, we bought Tunshire and Huth from you at the same time, and Huth actually came in to replace another player, although they played together for a bit, who was actually, I think, central in us staying up in our first season, who was Abdoulaye Faye.
He got to Newcastle.
He did play for Newcastle.
Play for Newcastle and Sunderland. Did he not play for Sunderland, or was that Andy Faye?
Yeah, that may have been Andy. We bought them both just in case. I think it was the deal. One of my favourite songs that didn't catch on the season we bought Huth and Tunshire was the song that I only heard one bloke try and start once. Sometimes those songs stay with you, aren't they? Which was Tun Shy Shy Abdullah.
Nick, I have been waiting for I've been waiting for someone to say this forever. I remember my friend telling me this in the playground, and every time I hear Kajagoogoo,
How often do you hear
Abdullah. Such a great song. I love things like that. They are, and this is very much the man behind me said. Frank Skinner tells the most fantastic story. This isn't a song story, but it's the bloke behind me story. And he said they'd lost at home to Forest when Forest were cock-a-hoop. I say cock-a-hoop, were brilliantly defensive and won games all the time. In the late 70s, very early 80s. And he said they'd lost 3-1. They'd just signed Francis, I think, and from Man City. Or did he go down? He went to Man City. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. And they lost 3-1. Final whistle goes. And as they're filtering out, down the steps from the seats, there's an announcement saying, if there's a Mr. Phillips in the ground, just to say, your wife's just given birth to a baby boy. So congratulations. And everybody goes, hey! And Frank said he heard this bloke and he said the reason he loved it best was because the bloke said it under his breath and to himself. And he said the bloke said, the poor fucking sod. He's had to watch that shit. Now he's got to go home and make his own tea. What a reaction to the birth of a child that is. He's got to go home and make his own tea. I properly credited it was Frank that told me that. It's a really good story.
That's a great one. It's even better the West Bromwich accent. That's just fucking drives.
He's got to go home and make his own tea.
I'm a big fan of the one he says about he got asked to do West Brom's end of season award show, and he said, "I think I'm busy in November." Oh, lovely stuff.
Have you ever done any professional footballers' end of season awards, Stews?
No, I
don't ever do it. I'm just telling you, don't do it.
Is it not a good?
What we're saying?
Well,
I think you'd have to be in Dubai nowadays, anyway.
Well, yeah. Something I learned when I did a dinner after we won the Autoglass Trophy in 1992. And I hadn't realised that all professional football, how old would I have been then? 28, 29, similar age to you, lad. And I hadn't realised that professional footballers all think it's only bad luck that they're not playing for their country.
Right.
So I did a speech taking the piss out of them. Oh my God, the silence. It was just absolutely awful. I got threatened by Mick Kennedy. You don't want to be threatened by Mick Kennedy, if you remember him, who played for Portsmouth, who I've seen sent off whilst on a stretcher, incidentally. That's the sort of player he was. And also, the most embarrassing thing about it of all was that I was sat next to Stanley Matthews, and halfway through, he tapped me on the elbow and said, I think you best sit down, lad. Sir Stanley Matthews said that. Listen, we've all had a bad gig. I've never done one since.
Wow.
Ballon d'Or winner tells you to fucking
I'll tell you what, even worse than that. Do either of you, I don't know if any of you lads have worked with Bob Mills. Do you know Bob?
I do know him, yeah. I've not worked with him.
Okay. Well, Bob was asked to go out to Burnham Beaches or wherever it may have been where the England squad were preparing for a tournament to do a bit of stand-up. And I said, don't, you know, they have their own laughs. They have their own in-jokes. They don't really want to. And also, you're doing a gig for people who haven't paid for it. You do a gig for people who haven't paid for it, it's always more difficult. I don't know why that is, because they think, oh, you can fuck off. Anyway. Well, Bob, to his eternal credit, Graham Challey was the manager, got about 10 minutes into his set, and this is an extreme way to get off the stage. Pretended to faint. He pretended to faint. And was carried off stage by 2 England physios. He comedy fainted out of embarrassment.
Oh, that's brilliant.
That's a good end to a gig, that is.
I wish I'd have done that when I very early on. I gigged for the Rotary Club, and as part of a presentation thing they were doing, and after I'd finished, a lady in her 70s came up to me and went, "That was one of the worst things I've ever seen," and then proceeded to do a presentation on surviving World War II.
Oh my God!
So,
I know.
The Blitz was better than me.
Oh!
Yeah, you know, all it's a rite of passage for all stand-ups, as we know. Funny enough, I did another one with Bob talking about the Rotary Club, where we were booked to do the Newmarket Cabaret Club. And when we got there, they were all...
doesn't sound much better than the Rotary Club.
They were all wearing black tie and ball gowns. And I think they thought there was going to be, you know, like a magician with doves and things like that, you know, like a traditional cabaret. A little bit of song and dance, ladies and gentlemen. Here's one you'll love. You know, I think they thought it was going to be all that.
No.
You go on and you say, "Oh, do you know what fucking pissed me off about the miners' strike?" And they'll go, "I'm sorry, you're in Newmarket. What on earth are you? What miners do you speak of? Jockeys? What are you on about?" Any old way, there you go. We seem to have done nearly everything apart from what I was meant to do. But is that all right?
That's perfect. This has been one of the best ones we've ever done.
We cannot thank you enough, honestly.
I would say just very quickly, a question for both of you. What is the Rotary Club? Is it like a shit Freemasons? Because I don't understand what they are.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
I've never understood what they are. See the things all the time. Like there's a Bury Rotary Club who are very keen on advertising around Bury. So.
Well, it's very weird. When I was young, there used to be a Conservative club in Stoke, and I used to think, who goes there? Who goes there? But I think really it was a social thing.
Yeah, it's just like the old name of it. But well, there'll be a reform club in Stoke soon. I think that'll do well.
I think basically the Conservative club it should really have been called a non-working men's club, which is what it was.
The Bosses Club.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, this has been one of the. This has been unbelievable.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
I know. I've been good. I'm sorry that we wandered so far off message.
Oh, don't worry about it.
The trouble is, when you get to my age, sadly, there's always an anecdote. Not necessarily a good one.
Oh,
but there's always an anecdote.
Well,
they were all
plenty about
it.
And where can people find you then, so they can hear it all?
Do you mean find me?
On your
house?
What do you mean? I was going to say.
24 will be closed.
Well, if anybody wants to hear two old thoughts, one who supports Oldham and one who supports Stoke. So we're very much not in the in the top six. We do a podcast called The Famous Sloping Pitch, which you might enjoy and you might not, but you can find out. There you go.
Exactly. What's the act of all that? Do you know? We'll put it all in the description.
Well, we start up with a little bit of close magic. Then we've got the animal act. Then there's the fire eater.
Not the act. No.
Yeah. The fire eater. We've got a fantastic comedian. We don't know who it is yet, but he'd be wonderful. Then the band will do. You can get up and dance, ladies and gentlemen, for the beginning of the second half.
This is definitely the best plug we've had as well. The best end of show plug. So
yeah. It's like the sort of thing where you actually go and visit old people when you were at school to do a project about what old people thought about. It's like that. You're forced to listen to two old blokes moaning about how shit football is now.
Heaven. That's what this is. All this is slightly younger blokes fucking whinging. So
nearly there.
Pretty much the same concept.
Yeah. Nick, this has been fantastic, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Finn. Thanks, James.
You can follow us all. You know where to follow us. If you don't know what to do on the internet by this point, what's the point? If you've listened to all of this and you've not subscribed,
between you, you're the three people I've spoken most to in the last week. That's what happens when you get to a certain age, thinking, oh God, if I cancel it, they'll have to speak to me again. That'd be fantastic. All right, boys. I'll see you later. Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. Cheers, mate.